Tantor with a recap of Georgia Tech's spring football game 2023. Well, this year was a little bit different, so I'll do this a little bit different. For the first time since pre-COVID, Georgia Tech had enough players to actually run a scrimmage game. In the previous couple of seasons, they have done basically just a practice and used half the field for practice. We got to go down there. It was usually just me and the family of the players that were in attendance. This season, we had a decent crowd. I would say 5,000 or 6,000. Now, I know that doesn't sound large to SEC fans, but we're not in the SEC, so there. For an ACC crowd of a basketball conference, it's not bad. And we were enthusiastic. We liked what we saw. The talent level has definitely risen this season from over the previous seasons. So I will generously say that the majority of the talent in previous seasons under, shall we say, Coach Jeff Collins, was, I would say, D. And then we had a couple players like Thomas and Ace Ely, wide receiver, and Donta Smith, and running back, and Sims, that were A-level athletes. But there was a big gap between the general amount of talent on the team and some of what we would call, I won't call them superstars, but the best players. This year, I would have to say that we don't really have any A-level talent on the squad, and that's okay. We have a lot of B players that are there. And when I break down individual position groups, we'll go over some of them that really stood out, and I think they're above average. But most of the squad, from what I saw, was an average squad, C-level talent. And that was good to see. It's good to see Division I football players out there. And it looked pretty good. I mean, the way it was formatted was offense versus defense. So it was the ones going against the twos. I don't really care for that format. I'd rather see my ones go against ones and my twos go against twos. But they went number one offense versus number two defense, and number two offense went against number one defense. And there was a lot of points scored, 42-24. And the number two offense put up 24 points on the number one defense. So that you can look at one of two ways. Either the offense is playing well and they're really going after it, or the number one defense really didn't perform as well as they should have. And there's a little bit of both. I think that the quarterbacks, now they threw the ball pretty good. But when we look at the coaching staff, we can see that Buster Faulkner, the new offensive coordinator, what he had with the game plan was, we're going to run the ball up the middle. We're going to do simple handoffs. We're going to run a simple offense. And then we're going to check the ball down to our speedy wide receivers. And then once you come up and start playing tight coverage on the wide receivers and on the little outs for the tight ends, he's going to go over the top with utilizing that speed that the wide receivers have. And that was very effective. We hit numerous long passes down the sidelines in the second half to our wide receivers. Both the ones and the two offenses really, really took advantage of some cornerback play in the second half with some long bombs. So that went well. We got to see a lot of offense. And obviously quarterbacks couldn't get hit, so when the offensive line would get beat, and it wasn't that often, but when they did, they let them go through with the play and took the results of the play. But you could tell that would have been a sack if the quarterback held the ball long or anything else like that. Overall, the scrimmage went well. There's some things I didn't like, but when I go into the position groups, I'll break that down and go into that in more specifics. But the overall talent level of the team looks better as a group. We don't have any superstars, and we're really going to miss those two linebackers, and we're going to miss White off the edge. That's going to hurt. There's no replacements for him on this squad at this time. But our wide receiver play was a positive. I like to see what we had there. Our running backs were good. Pyron got another year under his belt and was putting it out there and did okay. So if we can take advantage of some of the down ACC teams, we've got a chance of maybe squeaking out 5 or 6 wins and making a bowl game this year, based on what I've seen. But that's probably the ceiling. We're not in the class of NC State or Florida State or Clemson this season, and certainly not with that other team in the state of Georgia. That we're not going to compete against them either. So, an improvement, definite improvement from last season. They look disciplined. I didn't see any crap going out there on the field. You can tell that they have a real football coach that is installing some discipline in the game, and it's good to see. We haven't had that since George O'Leary, so I like all that aspects of it. So, hey, if you like this video, you want to hear a little bit more about Georgia Tech football and the position groups, check out our channel. We've got some short breakdowns on each position group. So we'll see you then.